it's the proof, right? It's the
Yes.
proof that's in the pudding.
Right.
And you can scope it. So we talked about that. Oh, I got the perfect scope. You did that right. And I'm like, prove it to me as your auditor, you know?
Right.
And to the point of artifacts as well, I wanted to say briefly, we're talking CMMC because that's where we're knee deep
Yes,
in.
thank you. Great.
But an artifact is for any kind of compliance. You need to have some sort of artifact. So when we get into this...
Hi, I'm Eric.
I'm Mike.
And welcome to the Cyber Sitrep, the Cyber Situation Report.
2 in a row.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
I can't believe it. I'm still in shock.
I'm
That's why I'm looking at the camera, but nothing's behind my eyes right now because I'm like.
But I think that's as far as I'm going to get.
Really?
So I'll check out now.
Relatively low bar, though, right?
That's right.
So, all right, everybody. Well, welcome. So it's been a minute since we've done a sit rep, and right now, Mike and I are both up to our eyeballs in CMMC, cybersecurity maturity model certification, and we've got some hot topics that we want to talk about that are coming up that Mike's seeing on his side, we're seeing on our side, and the title of this particular sit rep is Artifacts. It's about accreditation, not archaeology, stupid. It's the best I could come up with. Sorry, short notice.
Well, and it's going to be one of part 2. So this is kind of a in-depth dive into what an artifact is and why you need them and where you get them. And
you know, and it's funny you say that, Mike, because there's all these things that are equally important as it turns out with CMMC.
Yeah.
We just did a sit rep on scoping, right? And why scoping of what's in scope in your CMMC environment is critical, and how a lot of people are running afoul of that and having difficulties getting their accreditation complete. But I would argue that artifacts are just as important, right?
They are.
Which brings us to what do we need artifacts for?
Right. And what the heck is an artifact? I thought it was
an artifact.
Artifact.
I love that movie. I'll give you the reference later.
So, it is important. And to your point, it's the proof, right? It's the proof that's in the pudding.
Right.
And you can scope it. So we talked about that. Oh, I got the perfect scope. You did that right. And I'm like, prove it to me as your auditor,
Right.
And to the point of artifacts as well, I wanted to say briefly, we're talking CMMC because that's where we're knee deep in.
Yes, thank you. Great.
But an artifact is for any kind of compliance. You need to have some sort of artifact. So when we get into this...
Artifact. He's going to be saying that the whole time.
Artifact.
So it's important. It's agnostic, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the framework is. We got to have proof. We got to have evidence.
Exactly.
And we call it artifacts in the industry.
I was going to say, so can you tell me what an artifact is?
Yeah, so like you just mentioned, an artifact is proof of some kind, whether it's, a screen capture, a document, a interview of someone attesting, with veracity, saying that, yes, this is how we are meeting this security control you're asking us about. This is our piece of evidence, our artifact that proves that
something
what we're
that
saying
can be
is correct.
Stored in perpetuity for the, entirety of the legal requirement of that assessment.
See, spoken like a true C3PAO right there.
That's right.
Because people wouldn't do that to you, would they? They wouldn't go in and change artifacts behind your back, would they?
Well, they can't because we have to have them hash it so that we know they haven't changed.
Right.
So think of an artifact as that. We were joking about Indiana Jones and that kind of thing. It's not archaeology. But if you put everything in a chest, a folder, so you've taken all these artifacts, all these pieces of evidence you've collected to prove to us, the 3CPO, the auditing firm, the assessment firm, then you have to hold those and say that nothing has changed. And in CMMC, that's 6 years. You have to store them for 6 years.
Wow. Even though the accreditation's for 3 years, you have to keep it for double.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you then take all of these things and you put it in your chest, i.e. your folder, and then you have to run a hash, an algorithm against it. So that way it comes up with a value, a numeric value, to see if any of those files have changed. That's what a hash does. It just
one-way
verifies.
mathematical transform, right?
So you store it, you have the hash. If someone wants to come 4 years from now and say, are you sure that you did X, Y, or Z? And you can say, this was how we were assessed. The first step is they will run the hash. The value should match, meaning nothing has changed. And then they can go look at that piece of evidence and go, yep, that's exactly what you said. But if you didn't have the artifact,
Right.
that piece of evidence, how would they know?
Right. And no artifact, no pass the control, right?
That's right. And if I don't remember my kids' names. I'm not going to remember what piece of evidence you gave me 3 years ago.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
Right?
You're right. So
I go to the assessor and go, do you remember Eric's piece of evidence 3 years ago? And I'm like, who's Eric?
Yeah. So I just want to remind everybody, well, we didn't say this, but, senioritis here. This is part one. So we're going to talk about what artifacts are, what are some good examples. And then part two, we're going to get into the artifact management hell that you could create for yourself if you don't do it properly, right?
That's right.
That's going to be our title, Nate, is artifact management hell.
That's right.
For part two. So anyway, back to part one.
Part one. So what is
an artifact is?
Yeah, it's that piece of evidence. So what would you consider a good artifact?
Yeah.
So I know what we look for.
Is that a trick question?
Well, it can be because you know how
depends on the control, right?
It does. And so say a screenshot. You mentioned a screenshot.
Yeah.
So how would I make a screenshot a valid, decent artifact? The hard part with that is if I'm looking at a screen and this is the piece, the small little piece that I need.
That you need, right?
If you do a screen capture of that where I can read it beautifully, there's no timestamp. I don't know where did that come from. So maybe you need two. You need to take the whole page so I know that came from your Intune,
We needed to do this Sitrep like months ago, but this is great stuff. Everybody pay attention.
Yeah.
I've already got some go backs I'm going to have to do.
So that way you can then see that it came from Intune.
No, I got it. No, right. I get you there.
It came from the thing. And then if you want to zoom in because on the big screenshot, you're like, no, seriously, it's that little checkbox in the corner that you don't read what it says.
Right.
Zoom in and then, have an arrow on the first one saying this is the inlet or whatever.
Right.
And a date and time. If we can see the date and time or you can somehow attribute it to a date and time. So I know this screenshot isn't a century old.
So once again, this is a pro tip for on the implementation side. Make sure that whatever computer you're using to get these screen caps, make sure it's up to date, right? Yep. Please make sure your time and date are up to date. Keep it up to date so that you'll have timestamps on your files. And then also another pro tip, put in the date in the file name as well, right?
That'll help it. And then there's the metadata that's in the background we can verify.
Right.
We don't dig that deep, but there are assessors who
they
may.
can, right?
They'll be like, how do I know this is a current screenshot? And I know lead assessors that are like, if they don't see the time in the lower corner, it's not a valid screenshot. So artifacts,
we'll talk about that in part two.
Yeah, it's very important.
Artifact management hell, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's important to grab
stuff.
that for like a screenshot, to think about if an assessor is looking at this, will it provide enough proof, that evidence that control has been met?
Right. And what if, let's just say hypothetically, right, Mike, that screen capture gets you most of what that control is asking for, but not all of it? What would you recommend?
Answering the question, meaning looking at that control and saying, is there another artifact or piece of evidence that I might need? Is it another screen? Maybe there's another configuration. This is part A and that's part B. Maybe it's a policy. And you can say, this screenshot identifies policy A, paragraph 4. And that way we can look at it and go, I see what you're doing there.
So you're hearing it from the C3PO himself. More is better than less.
Yes.
Right? So if you don't think you have the control covered adequately with that single piece of evidence, then double, triple, quadruple down, find those other sources of truth that prove the veracity of what you're saying and have them as artifacts as well. And they don't have to be all combined in the same file. They can be multiple files for that one control. Right?
Absolutely. And again, if you're looking at it, I always say if you're doing an assessment on yourself, you're kind of self-assessing, have someone come in who doesn't necessarily understand.
Great point.
And say, does this make sense to you?
Right. This is what we're saying.
Right.
Now, does the artifacts we have in place,
That's right.
sorry, I'm going to do that all day, do they adequately prove our
Show
case?
this, right.
Or
Do
did
you
I
see
miss the
this?
mark and I'm nowhere even in the same zip code? That's a great idea.
Right.
That's a great recommendation.
And that way they can come in and do that independent review. And if they're
Right.
like, well, I don't know anything about IT, even better, because now you, the person who set it up, can explain it.
Yes.
Because that's what's going to happen during an assessment.
Absolutely.
And if they
yes.
can look at those artifacts and go, okay, I see what you're saying. Your words match to this thing.
Right.
Even though I don't understand the buttons and things, it makes sense.
And Mike, maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but I find that a lot of times what I think in my mind and what I get out on paper are two different things, right? So while I think I had that control all stitched up and with a bow, everything else, when I go back and review it, especially if somebody's pointed something out to me and I look at it with that, non-jaundiced eye, I'm like, what was that? What was I saying there?
I always found that.
It's great. Catch that, right?
If I am trying to explain something to someone where I'm building a standard operating procedure, a SOP, I like to have someone who has never done it do it.
Yeah.
Because then they capture every step, where we, who've done it a million times,
so many assumptions.
will click four times into something and go, oh, this is important. Let me take the screenshot of this. Then 4 clicks later, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is important. And then a new person comes and goes, how do I get to that screen?
I can't get that screen.
That is.
I can't get that screen to show up. And you're like, oh, I forgot this one crucial step. While you were looking over there, I clicked there to get there.
Yeah. So you get that new person in and they can
Happens.
go like, I clicked here. Write that down or capture it. I clicked here. Oh,
Once
I did
again,
that.
Right? Keep it simple, stupid, and
Always.
just test it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So then it's the collection of all of those things. And another key point, we'll go into the what and how, but make sure you have evidence for everything.
Yes. Now, that brings up a really good point, and it's a little bit of a segue. But as it turns out, if you guys are paying attention, there's 110 security controls within CMMC.
110 controls.
But every control has at least one or more
Objectives.
elements or objectives is the proper term, right? So one control may have 6 objectives that you have to meet.
Or more.
Yeah, so guess what? And I know I hate this too, everybody. I hate it. Mike always makes fun of me because some of them just seem to be pedantic, like you're being trolled. Doesn't matter. You need to have evidence for every objective. So what is that objective-wise? Is it 330 is the number?
There's 320 objectives.
320. So 110 controls stated, but over 320 objectives.
That's right.
that you
And
have
more
to have evidence
frustrating,
for.
and we'll get into part 2, how we track.
Wait for it. Part 2, it's going to be good.
You could have a piece of evidence that covers one objective,
Right.
and maybe that same screenshot, that same artifact will cover 4 other things.
So that's a blessing and a curse, right?
It is.
So on the one hand, it's awesome because you get reuse, especially between access control, identity and authentication, security and communications protection, system integrity. Those 4 are just so overlapped, it's crazy, right? So that's the good news. You get some reuse. The bad news is you got to remember exactly where you used it because you have to account for it for each objective.
That's right. And that's why I say when we get into the next episode of how do we manage this, that's important.
It can get a little dicey.
Yes,
right?
it can.
And
And
we have strategies.
Yes, there's ways to track
thoughts.
it, and there's frustrating ways to track it. There's tons of different things.
There's ways that don't work. I can share some of those. We've once again, School of Hard Knocks here, right?
Yep.
We'll go from there.
The collection of the 320, to me, that's your final exam.
It is.
If you can say, I have a piece of evidence for these 320 things, at least one.
If you have every bubble on the Scantron colored in,
yes, right.
then you're further along than a lot of people.
And you may not be sufficient, meaning maybe your evidence isn't right, or when you get assessed, that's why, again, bringing in help. But you at least can look at someone in the eye and go, I've answered everything. I've got a piece of evidence for everything.
Mike, can I ask you, it just brings up, squirrel, tangential question here on that. If the artifacts aren't quite up to snuff, but they're in the ballpark, let's say they're in the right zip code, right, but they're not on the right street.
Right.
You guys give provisions for corrections, right?
So during an assessment, you can make changes for up to 10 days after the assessment. That's what's written into, this is for CMMC.
Right.
Look at your
Could be different for other
compliance,
right.
but we're kind of in the CMMC hell, so that's where we're focusing.
It's our nightmare right now.
Yeah, you have up to 10 days. So if, and sometimes even if you show me. So during the interview, and I'll be like, so two-factor authentication,
right.
and you do this, and then you're like, oh, and look at this screen, and I'm like, that says it 10 times better.
Yeah, why didn't you show me that to begin with? He would never say that, but...
No, but I'll say, hey, screenshot that.
Yeah.
Throw it in as an artifact.
And we're good to go.
Right.
And we're good to go.
I mean, you probably were passing before, or you were close to passing, but we're happy to say, hey, what you just showed me is awesome. Do you have that already? I don't remember that as an artifact. And if you're like, didn't think of it.
And once again, being the scrappy other side of things, trying to give you guys a hard time.
We're the yin and the yang
we
of
really are,
CMMC.
right? To try and poke them in the eye, right? And we'll do another sit rep on this. So I just want to mention to everybody, the assessors aren't there to just fail you because, right?
Yeah, well, we're not.
Because it's a very, and if they are, but here's why, right? So let's say, yes, I know there are some operators out there, you know who you are doing this. They're just going out on a power trip, trying to fail people. Guess what? That model isn't going to work very long for them because the word's going to get out.
Yeah.
Because there's only 106 of them, right? So the math, like you said, the math just doesn't math. It
doesn't math.
So if somebody's a bad actor and starting to burn people down to the ground, that message is going to get out really quick, and they're not going to be used.
That's right.
And so they'll dry up, wither up, and they'll be out of the market.
Yep.
So believe me when I tell you, from my experience being an assessor, not for CMMC, but for other things, for federal government, it's not in their best interest to automatically try to fail you.
No.
Right? That is not the goal here. The goal here is to make sure you're protecting CUI adequately in your environment, right?
I read on LinkedIn a great analogy for this.
Yeah.
There are 3 types of assessments, and it's the
wait.
Goldilocks. So you have the ones where the bed is too soft, meaning they're easy. They're passing people. They don't care. You pay me, and I give you the certificate.
Not good. That's not going to work
the
either.
diploma mill version, if you will. Eventually, they'll get burned. The people
Somebody
they assessed will
out.
get failed.
Yep.
And,
and it's
then you have
ugly.
the too hard, the people who are like, I'm smarter than you, and I'm going to find everything you did wrong to prove that
Push
I
my
know what I'm
glasses
doing.
up, give you a hard time.
And then there's the just right, the ones that are like, we're going to be firm and we're going to be fair. But if you showed me something and you can screenshot it now, throw it up there. You're doing it.
My 25-cent word for that is pragmatic.
Pragmatic.
Right? Yeah, when we find the pragmatic C3PAO, they're going to make you work for it, and you may not be happy with everything, but they will get you through it.
Yep.
And importantly, you'll be protecting that data, and you'll be able to continue to do business with Uncle Sam.
And I tell them all I'm looking for, and it's right on topic, I want that company to have a defensible artifact repository 3 years from now. So all we're doing is making sure that when we say you've passed, you have the evidence to back it up. And then you seal it, hash it, put it away in the dark recesses of your folders on your network.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We don't want to see anybody fail, that say they're good and then they're not, and then they get wiped out from a catastrophic event. We don't want that either, right?
Exactly.
So, it's a balancing act.
Exactly. So it's all about having the artifacts.
Right. Okay.
So I think that's what do you think? Good place. We'll come back and then we'll get into where do we keep them? How do we keep them?
Well, and I wish I had like a nickel for all the people out there that are like, oh man, what do you mean 320 things? Oh my gosh, now I got to go back and look at those artifacts. I'm there with you. I feel your pain. Do it now while you've got the time, right? Don't get a previous sit rep. Don't get to the altar thinking you're ready and you're not even close, because that is really going to cost you time and money and reputation potentially.
Exactly.
Right.
So thanks for learning what an artifact is.
Yeah, thank you. Stay tuned for part 2.
That's right.
Thank you.
Remember to follow wherever they are.
I don't even try anymore. Take care, everybody. See you.
We're coming to you from the Studio 809 Community Podcast Studio here at the Next Us. This is a professional cooperative environment for small businesses here in downtown Colorado Springs. We'd like to thank them for supporting us over our journey.
Yeah, it's been a minute or two.
Yes.
Thank you guys for your continued support.
Thank you.